Welcome to the Co-Creative Sessions, your access point for knowledge and expertise from artists, creatives, change makers, designers, entrepreneurs, and community enthusiasts in the South Coast and beyond.
It's just these little fleeting moments, which with photography, that's what we do. We stop time.
Welcoming the viewer into what we do is just so important.
How can you look at the different facets of your creative work?
And now, the Co-Creative Sessions. Thank you for joining us for the latest entry in the Co-Creative Sessions. I'm Scott Bishop, and I'll be moderating tonight's session. Cara Bean is a cartoonist and art educator specializing in mindfulness drawing workshops and comics about mental health. Her comics work include Snake Pit, Notes on Adolescent Depression and Suicide, and Let's Talk About It, a graphic guide to mental health. Her current project, Here I Am Me, is a deep dive into mental health concepts for a child audience and will be released in March 2024 by Workman Publishing. In her workshops, Cara guides participants through drawing and writing exercises designed to boost their confidence and creativity. She gets participants excited about how the beginning of a complex idea can emerge from the simple act of doodling on paper. Visit her website to learn more at carabeancomics.com. And now, here's Cara.
Thank you, Scott. So welcome, friends. We are gonna talk about drawing, and then I'll introduce you to some of my work, and then we will draw together. I'll guide you through a little drawing exercise, maybe a little comic, and we'll see how we feel about it. Being about mental health, I'm very interested in your feelings as we're moving through this. So feel free to let us know if you want to share. I'm going to share my screen and take you through a little slideshow. We'll start there, and I talk through my comics, so I'm best when I have my images to share with you. So I'm going to do that now. Here are two recent comics of mine. About 5 years ago, I set about to create comics for young people about mental health. As a high school art teacher, I was seeing a lot of issues in my classroom, and I thought, I make comics, maybe I'll try to tackle this. It was a really tricky process. So in the process of the larger book, Here I Am Me, which is about 284 pages, I did this little 24-page book with a place called the Center for Cartoon Studies. And I worked with some cartoonists and some scientists and some therapists, and they kind of gave me a list of things they wanted me to mention using the language of comics. And it was a great practice session for the bigger book that I've been working on that'll be released next year. And I just got the third pass, so I'm working on it, final edits now, which is exciting. So one fun thing I really love, and most cartoonists do, is collecting metaphors. And so these are metaphors for anxiety, stress, fear, what it feels like in the body. And so I think I just put it out there, what does it feel like when you are having, your nervous system is basically sending off the alarm. And these were a bunch of reactions that I got, and it was really fun to illustrate them. And to see how it's maybe different for some people versus others. And then I did the same thing with depression. I asked, what does that feel like in your body? And these were some reactions and metaphors that people gave me. And, I was really grateful to have imagery to share, so that, because these are sort of invisible things that you can't always tell what's going on the inside. So when you have these metaphors, it helps. Here's a page from my upcoming book that it doesn't have the text in it, but you can see each location, each chapter is a location. And in this instance, this chapter is about the mind, and the mind is a river, and my little Bean character, my last name's Bean, so my students would call me Ms. Bean. So the little bean floats down a river, as we talk about psychology and the mind, and above the surface kind of awareness versus your unconscious mind, which I think of as being under the surface, underwater. Another chapter in the book is about coping, and it's a garden. So you climb down into this garden, and we investigate these questions. Each chapter has a question map. So they were fun to kind of come up with the locations and settle in on the questions that we were going to answer in the book. And then there's a chapter about addiction and substance use, and that's an amusement park. So this is a spread about loving somebody who has an addiction problem and how that can feel like getting on a ride that you get off of, but they don't want to get off of, the spinning teacup ride, perhaps. And I like to draw these little brain characters. I have a chapter about depression, and I wrote about learned helplessness, and I love to take science, something difficult, and try to use comics language to express it. And I have a little dog named Raisin, which you might see me if you were in New Bedford walking this little dog Raisin around. So this dog is inspired by Raisin, but there were terrible experiments on poor little doggies, zapping them, where this concept of learned helplessness was captured. And we talk about that a lot when we talk about depression. And I have a chapter about suicide. You can see the color palette changes slightly there, and about, helping others and also helping yourself if you're hopefully not in that situation, but if you are, you can get some help. And the final chapter is about getting help. And so I used a lot of bridges for that. That was kind of like a place of bridges, of crossing bridges. So that's the final chapter of the book. And I'll pause there for a second to just say, so that's been a 5-year journey of 3 years of probably writing and conceiving and researching the book, and 2 years of actually drawing and then coloring the book. And I moved to New Bedford in August of last year. So I've been here almost a year, and I did a lot of the coloring of this book here in my little apartment. So it was nice of Dina to pull me out and to introduce me to some of you. And this little talk to give you about drawing as we transition out of like my project and into that we're going to draw together today. I made this talk about why draw, even if you don't like how you draw, or you're having a bad drawing day, or you don't consider yourself capable of drawing. I made this talk when I was a teacher after giving a terrible workshop to fellow teachers. I thought it was going to be fun. Some people had fun. Some people really didn't like drawing and were pretty upset when I made them draw. And I didn't realize they would have such strong feelings. So I actually made this talk for the adults that I draw with, more so than with kids, because I don't really need to explain to them why I draw. They usually jump on board. So for the rest of us who have our bad drawing days, this talk is for all of us, really, myself included. Like I said, my last name is Bean, so my students would call me Ms. Bean, and that's where this little bean character came about. It came out of my classroom, and when I draw the bean shape, I'm usually in teacher mode or presenter mode when I'm that character, and I draw other characters to represent myself in other kinds of stories that are not the bean when I'm not in like educator mode. And I'd love to explore a little bit with you today about characters and what kind of characters you could make up for yourself, and like what parts of yourself you might want to represent through characters. So just really quickly, why draw? It's really has all these beautiful benefits. So I just like to review that, even for myself, to get back into the swing of things. It strengthens the beautiful connection between your eye, your hand, and your brain. It can stimulate and strengthen creativity outside of art, even just in other facets of your life. You can get your positive brain chemicals shooting and exploding and sending off messages to each other, like serotonin, endorphins, dopamine, and norepinephrine. And so that you can improve your mood, which I would say is a great thing. You can come in feeling one way and leave after drawing feeling a bit better, hopefully. I like to say that drawing is like handwriting. It can reveal something unique about your personality. Like I said, the bean character is like my teaching character, but I could be a spider, I could be a puppy, I could be an evil queen, and even my scribbles are still me. I like to use an example of like you have a loved elder, grandparent in your life, and let's say they sent you birthday cards and you save them over the years, and sadly that older person passes away, but you still have that card and you have their handwriting, and when you stare at that handwriting, it's a piece of them, and it's special to you, and just to remind you that your handwriting, your marks, other people look at it with the same kind of love and adoration. So just the harshness that we can put on ourselves and our artwork, just to remind ourselves that there's a lot of love out there for us and for the marks that we make, and even just our little signature. Okay. So keep that close to your heart. Drawing is wonderful because it's a communication asset. You can use it to open the door for language learners, and it can help with social anxiety. If you're really shy person in your life that doesn't want to talk, maybe you can send a little cartoon their way on a piece of paper, and maybe they'll answer you that way. It can help with autism or verbal disabilities as well. There's so many ways that drawing is just like another tool in your toolkit that you can use. And it can instigate the development of critical thinking and problem solving. So I love this because especially parts of your life that aren't, I don't know what you guys do. Maybe you're artists, but maybe art isn't your main thing. Or maybe you're trying to solve an emotional problem. Maybe you're trying to solve a technical problem in your household. You can fix a window or something, or you're writing something that's really difficult. Taking a break and doodling for a little bit and really letting yourself relax can open up your creativity. So it's just good to have as a practice. I would love to see, so every once in a while they do exhibitions of like philosophers and scientists and their doodles, and it's great, or presidents, like the doodling kind. And a lot of people doodle that are not artists. They just do it because it helps their brain. Can also produce an overall state of alertness that all your brain functions can use for improvement, right? So meditation is a beautiful thing, and a lot of people meditate to find their calmness, and a lot of people have a hard time accessing that sitting still. And there's actually ways that you can use drawing to help you get that same kind of present moment, where you can let go of your thoughts and have the same mental benefits as you would with meditation. And I think some types of drawing are a form of meditation. And it can be emotionally releasing and is a great method for therapy for addressing trauma. So drawing is a way of processing. Sometimes it's hard to find words to talk or to write about something, but somehow pictures can kind of take you there. And if we look at some of the greatest artworks in museums and our favorite graphic novels and favorite movies and TV shows, there's a lot of trauma being processed in those things. And I think it's really cathartic for the audience as well as the creators. Doodling does not detract from concentration. It can help by diminishing the need for the brain to resort to daydreams. And I was a doodler as a kid, and I did get yelled at a lot because I was constantly doodling. But I've had conversations with teachers, because I am a teacher as well, and I've worked with a lot of teachers, and there's different kinds of doodling. So I will say that it's sort of the soft doodling, kind of the like casual doodle that keeps, say, an anxious person or someone that has a lot of nervous energy grounded. That kind of doodling is helping you pay attention. Or if you're doodling what is being discussed in the class, right? You're like making little notes to help you remember things. That's going to improve your memory. If you're escaping the class by really doing like a detailed bridge drawing that's taking like all of your focus away from whatever's happening in class, yes, that's a distraction. So there is a little wiggle room there. I just wanted to state that for the record. And drawing, they've done some studies that drawing can improve memory and boost recall abilities by adding to the little synapses and the neurotransmitters in your brain, which is wonderful. I love that when they do any kind of scientific research with drawing, I'm always collecting it. So hopefully, I'm really hoping that it helps as I age, helps my memory. I think the number one reason all these benefits happen is because drawing can reduce stress. Stress is a big problem in our lives and for our memory, for our wellness, for our creativity. So you gotta get relaxed for the good things to start to happen. And doodling is a good way to just open it up, because you can actually stress yourself with drawing too, right? You can do lots of things with drawing. So talking about stress, I like to ask you to just do a little mental picture in your mind about your stress or anxiety. And what would that look like as a little creature or character for you? I did this recently with a group of kids, and this one kid like shot his arm up, and I was like, hold that thought. And then we got to the end, and he was like, I have to tell you. I'm like, what is it? And he said, it's an ape. It's an ape. And I was like, okay, that's great. Mine is, I'll show you. I have many. I have many categories and many characters, but this is one that I like to share. It's a little yellow squirrel. I picture it like rabid and running and frantic, all through my brain when I get triggered or upset by something, or just really nervous, or even super excited, like happy. I recently got to meet an author I really liked, and he asked me the name of my book, and I forgot the title of my own book that I was working on for 5 years, because I was just so happy to meet the author that I just blanked out. So that I just pictured that little squirrel came on board and like stopped the memories from coming into the front of my head. So now that I have a little character, I can use it to give you a fact, and I can teach you something. When anxiety goes up, then the working memory goes down. It's like screaming, I'm so confused. We can lose 13 to 20 IQ points in an anxious moment. So doodling is one way I can calm myself down. If I have the luxury of having a little notepad or a scrap of paper or even a little napkin nearby, before a job interview, or before I board an airplane, or during a meeting that I'm having a hard time like focusing in, I can doodle, and that can help me. All of this research is on my website, but all of these points were taken from different bits of research that great scientists are doing with creativity and art. So you can look that up if you wanted to use any of this for your own practice. I took this little quote from Louise Bourgeois. She drew for her entire life. She became well known in her 80s, which I love. And she says, she's just talking about drawing, and she says, I know that when I finish a drawing, my anxiety level decreases. The realistic drawings are a way of pinning down an idea. I don't want to lose it. With abstract drawings, when I'm feeling loose, I can slip into the unconscious. So what I love what Louise is telling us is like, there's different ways that you can control your brain with drawing. You can draw one way to get one effect and another way to feel a different effect. And you can actually like care for your mind a bit with the way that you're using drawing, which I think is really exciting. So we're going to draw. Anytime I have a new group of people that I'm going to draw with, I always give this little talk. Again, this happened after my bad time teaching teachers. So I made this up as a result of not having a conversation before we drew together. We have the luxury of being virtual, so you have more privacy. Maybe it's less intimidating, but still, I think it's good to have a little chat. Here's this little classroom, and each little character in the classroom is an art supply. And I'm the bean right now because I'm presenting to you, so that's the character that I'm associating with. But you're going to meet all these little art supply characters, and I want you to, after you meet them, kind of feel which ones feel closest to who you feel like tonight. And just knowing that you're not stuck with this character, and that you might have felt different yesterday. You can certainly feel different, and like after the session, you might feel different tomorrow. But I just really want to know how you're feeling today. So each character represents a feeling kind of about drawing. So the first character is the pencil, and the pencil says, his name's HB. He says, I love drawing. It's like a friendly unwinding of myself and a cheap way to entertain my brain. So if you're feeling pencil, you are maybe a natural doodler. You probably already use doodling as a coping mechanism to feel good, and a place to play and experiment. And maybe sometimes people yell at you for doodling on things you shouldn't. Like you're like, whoops, I drew on your nice table. I didn't mean to do that. Paper plate, you were going to use that. And that's sort of like you came here, you're feeling excited, and you're probably already doodling while I was talking. Okay. So that could be you. Then there's Erasmus, the eraser, and he says, drawing stresses me out and makes me anxious. So maybe you don't draw regularly, or you haven't given yourself a chance to draw in a while, and you feel rusty, and you're maybe a bit nervous about it. Like, what is she going to make us do? Or am I going to have to show what I do? I feel Erasmus when I'm at like a comic book convention and they're like, you're going to draw in front of this audience, and like it's a competition and you're going to go up against Raina Tegelmeier or somebody that I really admire. And I'll be like, no. But like it changes depending on the situation. But some people just have a really strong, I have one friend that just the idea of drawing really, really immediately starts getting really nervous. But then there's Rulerford, okay? And the ruler, who's a perfectionist, okay? So maybe you enjoy drawing, but precision and accuracy is important. And you might just be like, I have a lot of things I start, but I can't quite finish them because they never add up to what I want them to be. Or you just take a really, really long time, which is totally fine. I think about Vermeer, beautiful paintings that took like 14 years to create, and we're so grateful for those that small amount of paintings because it took so long to make. You needed an entire lifetime to do it. But it can be frustrating to be the ruler perfectionist when you just want to relax and you can't relax, and you just want to play and you're feeling a bit stuck. And that way it can be tough. Okay. And then the next character is the pen, Penelope. And she says, I'll draw when it serves a purpose. So Penelope, I definitely became a Penelope when I signed up to create a graphic book and I had to draw hundreds of pages. Some days I was having fun, some days I was just getting them done. And it had a purpose. I had a job to finish. So maybe you draw, but maybe really when, if you're, a professional illustrator, when you're hired to, when I was a teacher, it would be like to do the boards or worksheets or a birthday card, but I wouldn't always draw just for fun anymore. I kind of just did it when I had like a reason to do it. Nothing wrong with that, but it's just maybe where you are with drawing. And I'm curious. So now that you've met all these characters, I want to go into the chat here. If you could just write in the chat, and you can be more than one character, which one are you feeling most like tonight? And I'm gonna say I'm feeling pen still. I'm in the pen mode. But if you could write down, maybe you're like, you could be a complex one. You could be like, I'm half eraser and half pencil, like, or you could be three of them. But just kind of like if you had to associate with one tonight in this moment, knowing we're going to draw, which one do you feel most like? Scott says pen. B says Rulerford. Dina says pencil. Nice. Tessa is one of those complicated people. It's highs and lows. Yeah. Oh, Penelope and my daughter is a pencil. Great. We got lots of pens here tonight, and pencil and eraser. Gwen is also complicated. Yes. All right. We only have one Rulerford. B, that's you tonight. So that's really good for me to know about you, because if anyone's feeling eraser, I wouldn't want to put that person on the spot or make you like any extra pressure because you're already feeling a bit stressed. So I will think about that. I don't know where I'm going to catch Gwen. I might catch you in an eraser moment. I might catch you in a pencil moment. We'll find out as we go. But just a few more thoughts about this. I wanted to say that all of these characters, obviously, were really complicated. This is kind of a freaky drawing, but I'm not always the bean. I'm usually, these days, I'm really not the bean. I'm probably jumping around from pen to eraser to ruler, depending on what I'm focusing on or obsessing over. And sometimes I get to be the pencil the most when I'm doing things with like this in a group, and I start off as pen and I start playing and having fun. And I remember the pencil side of myself, which is great. And then I showed these characters to my mom and she said, you forgot one. And actually, a lot of people told me I've forgotten a bunch of them. So if you thought of more characters, I'd love to hear it. But this is one my mom said. We could be the blanky blank piece of paper that's just nothingness and waiting to see what will happen, which I love that. And that feels like a nice aspiration. And oh yeah, and so we're gonna begin soon, and you want to check in with your body, do a quick scan, get a drink of water, get whatever you need, get a little pile. I'm just using a stack of copy paper, but you can use a notebook, scrap paper, it doesn't, whatever you have. And then any kind of drawing tool you like. I'm going to use a black colored pencil just so you can hopefully see my marks, but you can use anything. If you like marker, you like pen, you like crayon, you name it. Oh, Gwen, your pencil and ruler. Okay, that's good for me now. Cool. So let me see if I have one more slide. Oh yeah, drawings will not be perfect. So for that, if our Rutherford part of our personality is saying, it's not unacceptable, I have to do it again, do over, do over. That's okay. And sometimes you need that. But maybe then the eraser side of you is gonna be negative and say, oh, it's not coming, it's not, why should I bother? It's not coming out good. I can't do this. I like to think of like sort of that more judgment kind of thinking as a radio station that I certainly have in my mind. Maybe you're lucky and you don't have it as bad as others, but if you do, just know you can maybe not turn the radio station off, but just go, oh yeah, that happens. Especially when I haven't drawn in a while, I get those thoughts kind of come out, and you just draw through them and pass them into that blank state of mind. Just remember, it's like so cool that you're here, and the way you draw is who you are. If you have a shaky line, there's beauty in that. And if you draw a lot, you're always going to get better. So, and then the sad thing is you'll always want more. So you're always like reaching, but it's just, it will happen. It travels with you. I'm going to transition to my paper and pencil. We're going to old school draw. I have a document camera so you can see. I have a really dorky thing that I'm going to have you do, that I have everyone do, which is I want you to hold up your pen or pencil in front of you, and I want you to roll it in your hands like this. So you're getting some of that heat from this hot day into your pencil. And I like to, we're going to do a little experiment in oxytocin. We're going to get positive feelings. We're going to make sure that this pen or pencil, as you're rolling it, is like a puppy or a kitten that you brought back to your home. And it's really chosen you as its person. And it doesn't like everybody else as much. And it wants to sit on your lap. It only purrs when you pet it, or licks your face if you're picturing a puppy. And then feel that love that that little creature has for you, and give it right back, and feel that warm feeling in your heart, and know that this little pencil or pen drawing tool is going to do its best job for you, and it wants you to have a good time tonight. Okay, and just kind of give a little hand hug. Okay, good. All right. And we're going to do a warm-up exercise just to get into the mode of drawing. This is probably only going to be about a minute, and we need to do a repetition of a shape. So let me share my screen. All right, and I've got my pencil that's in love with me, and then I'm going to create a loop or an ellipse, okay, or a circle, right? And the secret is I need to do a lot of these, a bunch of these, like so many of them. But just know I can be very relaxed about it. I can stay on one for a long period of time and just see what that feels like and not go anywhere. I could do a bunch of tiny ones, snappy ones, right? I can go diagonal, vertical, horizontal. And I also want you to think about your senses. So you've got touch. How are you holding your pencil? Are you holding it like you do when you write? That's fine. Try a few going like that, but then maybe go backwards a little bit. So you're a little further back on the pencil, and see how it changes when you create your loops. I also want you to incorporate your sense of hearing if you have access to that. listen to the sound that it makes. If you're lucky enough to have that ability, listen and feel the grip. Okay. I don't know, maybe you smell something. You can use your sense of smell. Maybe you're using a marker, Sharpie. And obviously we're looking, so we're using our eyes. And we're taking deep breaths. Right? And we need to just keep on making them and feel free to overlap them. But just kind of believe for a second that your hand has a little engine in it that just makes you make loops. And you can't stop making the loops. Right? One after another. And try to get more and more relaxed, breathing as you go. And just enjoy the sounds. I find the more I do them and the more I relax, the more they kind of come together nicely for me. And it's like just the less you try, kind of the better. If you try too hard, they sort of get awkward, but when you relax more, they have a bit more of a snap and they have a bit more balance and just feels good. But you got to do, I mean, I don't even know how many I have on the page, but you need to like almost have filled the page in my experience to kind of get that relaxation going. And I think the other part to doing repetition and many of one thing is that you can't get attached. If we were just making one, you would be like, oh no. But because there are so many, some are good and some are bad, and it doesn't matter. You do a good one, you keep going. You do a bad one, you keep going. You just have to keep going. And there's something that's centering about that. Just like centering clay on a wheel. Except we're just using our pencils or our pens. You can do like sometimes people like to do figure eights or any shape, but I think it's just as long as it's the same thing over and over. Louis Bourgeois, like unconscious kind of feeling where it's, I like to also think of it as like throwing down beats. If you're like a musician, like here's one, here's another, and you just kind of fall into the rhythm of it. And it's a good way to center you just before you begin. And you can come up with any kind of thing like that. You can come up with your own idea, but it's just something that's like the drawing before you start drawing. I think it's a good practice. Okay, so let me go back to the document camera because that we're gonna kind of categorize that drawing that we just did as like a meditative drawing, a mindful drawing or doodle. And now let's talk about noodling, which is really fun, especially for cartoonists and illustrators. Here's my big page of loops, okay? Noodling is when you play with something that's already there. So at the very least, I can just kind of create contour lines and connect some of my loops together just by making decisions. Like when I draw a dark line, it goes over the lighter lines and this becomes this like funnel-like shape, right? If I add a curve to it, then it kind of has like a noodle, right? So I'm just kind of playing. I'm not super attached to this. I'm just seeing what happens. It's kind of like a very relaxed puzzle that I made for myself. Like, what do I want to do with this? You can also like shade in some of your shapes, right? So then it becomes a silhouette or a hole, right? Or maybe there's something coming out of one and then you shade around the little object. So now that really looks like it's coming out of a hole. If you like to play with color, you could break out your markers or crayons and like, you know, add reds and greens and pinks and whatever colors you like. And that's like gonna get you into that noodling type of thing. And when you are like low stakes, not attached to it emotionally, someone could call you away from this and it would be no problem at all to just be like, oh, I gotta go. You're not attached, but you're also kind of having fun and it's grounding you. And you could be like on the phone when someone's telling you a story or listening to a podcast. You're still catching everything, but this is just kind of occupying your fidgetiness, right? And then, you can always make like actual objects like a mug, right? Like ellipses are useful in the drawing world. We need them for anything that has a circular top. That's not a waste of time. But also it can just stay abstract and you don't have to go into anything recognizable and you can just keep going and keep having fun, right? So you can feel a little bit of difference in your brain, I hope. Like just take a moment, like that first drawing had that swirliness to it, and this is more like plink, plink, plunk, plunk, like I would like pizzicato kind of brain feeling to it, which like you can go in and out of. So again, I really love to refer to music, right? So like this sort of swirling versus just little connections, little reactions. That you can go in and out of, and again, without attachment. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about cartooning, because I want to get into maybe making some characters together. So I'm going to go back to I'm going to start a new piece of paper, and yeah, you can see I'm going to draw a line down the center of my paper without a ruler, and I don't care if it's wobbly, and it just has to be like approximately down the center like that, like a landscape line kind of. And then I'm going to draw 2 more lines coming down again without a ruler, just freehanding it. So I have 3 panels here, and then I have some free space up here. The free space up here I want to use to talk about cartooning and really simple marks. We're looking for simple and clear, right? So if you generally draw from observation with lots of shading and lots of careful measurement and that type of thing, that's beautiful. And I like to do that too. But for the purposes of this evening, we're going to keep it like super simple and like just a step above Pictionary kind of drawing. Okay, like really like stick figures are fine. Simple shapes are great, because we need to come up with ideas pretty fast, and knowing that you can always take your ideas and refine them and make them different later. So so don't fight it. But the easiest mark you can probably make would be like a dot like that, right? And if you think about dots, they can be complex. They could become they could become a row of dots that becomes like a line, right? And then you have actual lines, and lines have energy, right? And we were talking about having a wiggly line. I meet people that are insecure about their wiggle if they have kind of like an uncontrolled line. But I think about Charles Schulz and Peanuts and Charlie Brown, and in his older years, he had such a wobbly line, and to me, that's absolutely gorgeous. And I would die to have one of those drawings. So there's nothing wrong with the wiggly line. If you pull towards you, you can make really straight lines, right? And I'm using a lot of force in that line. And the more I do it, that could be another way to ground you if you enjoy this. You could, instead of doing loops, you could just do a bunch of lines. But then if you, as Paul Klee would say, take a line on a walk and close it back up, now you have a shape, right? So we've got from dots, we've got our dots, we've got our lines, we've got our shapes. We're going to make some characters, and I just want to give you an easy cheat. If you make a shape and you are like, I don't know how to make that into a character, just know you could put a circle with a dot in it, and now it's a little blob creature, right? And give it some stick arms and legs, and that's pretty cute, and you're ready to go, right? Which maybe could be more interesting than, not to say that stick figures aren't interesting, because I've seen some really cool stick figure comics, but a blob creature, you can color in, and maybe will just be a little bit more easy to tell one character from another, especially if they're different shapes, right? Here's another blob creature. Okay, so let's go to the center and create a little shape without planning, right? Some kind of blob. And then let's make it into a blob monster. Right, and maybe I give it 3 eyes. Right, and the fun thing about monsters is they don't have to have anything, you just make them up as you go. Like, they're gonna have as many arms and legs as you want them to have. He has one weird big leg. They can have stripes, they can have fur, they can have, maybe they have fangs. Easy eyebrows. I don't know what these things are, but they have a lot of these. Okay, that's my blob monster. And then come up with your own blob monster and then ask yourself, if my blob monster had parents, what would they look like? This is a Linda Berry exercise that she's an artist I really love. She's a cartoonist. And so she might ask you, hey, this blob monster has parents. And the parents look a little bit like the blob monster, but not like each other. So just don't plan it, come up with 2 more random shapes, put them in fast. Okay, and now you've got this little guy to help you figure out. So like, maybe one of my monsters has a lot of eyes. And maybe my other one has a lot of these things growing out of their head. And just kind of play. And there's no way to screw it up. Just kind of have fun. We're giving blobs life, which is fun. Okay, and then you have a little blob family, right? And then your brain might just start coming up with stories about this family or dynamics. Like, is one parent nicer than the other? Which one does the child like to spend more time with? Like, you could kind of like your brain just might start to have fun and go with that. So I think we have time to do a bit more. So I'm excited, but I do want to leave time in case we want to chat a little bit too. And I know I've been dominating your time. I would like to do one more exercise going a little deeper into characters and kind of taking a moment to reflect on like what I've talked about, characters that represent feelings or different parts of your life. Maybe personas that you have. Maybe there's like a shy part of you and then an extroverted part of you, or maybe there's like professional you and party you, or different like ways that you can kind of compartmentalize yourself. So having some fun with that without planning it. Like, really, let's go into this the same way that we did with the loops, in which we're going to make a bunch of shapes and then we're going to make those shapes into characters. And if you start to get perfectionist or like, oh no, I ruined it, just forget it, move on to the next one and just keep going. So you have a whole bunch, like a whole cast of shapes. And again, we're going to work really fast. And if you end up liking any of these characters, know that you can refine them after the workshop and like redraw them better or whatever you want to obsess over. You can do that, but we're not going to do that right now. We're going to stay in this like loosey-goosey, floppy doodle mode, okay? So I want you to make a bunch of fun shapes, right? And just know, like, you can have hard edge shapes, you can have straight lines, you can have wobbly lines, you can do recognizable shapes like hearts or numbers. Um, you can put two shapes together or three shapes together, right? But just start off not attached to the shapes too much. Just make a bunch. So that again, so you're not overly focusing on one. I'm trying to break you of that, or myself of that, I should say. I don't know, maybe you don't have that problem, but I do. So to conquer my obsessive Rutherford kind of thinking, I need to give myself just a page of shapes to start with, that I don't plan carefully because I want to stay in the moment. Right. And now that I have, at least, I don't know how many shapes, but like over 5 shapes, we'll say. Now go ahead and start giving them faces. Like even if you just have a triangle and you put one circle in it, now it is a little tortilla chip cyclops, and that's super cute, right? So nothing hard, but just start giving them little faces and arms and legs, and keep it to sticks and simple shapes, and just see, what happens. This is, I don't know, right? And so here we go. Fill them up, give them life, and think about, some can be kind of sad if you want. They can be happy. They can have emotions, and just see what comes out of you, and just kind of surprise yourself. And keep moving and keep breathing, and notice the fun sounds that your pencil makes, your sounds in the room. Get stuck, move on to the next one. That's why there's a lot. All right, real quick. And then hopefully you're able to make a few of them. Even if you just got like 2 or 3 done, that's okay. Woo! Yay! Way to go! Yeah. So what you could do then, what I like to say is if you have the energy to keep going, I like to choose one character of this page and put them inside of a panel and then draw them in an environment. And it's really amazing what happens once you take them. I would think of out of the sketchbook in a way, if you consider this the like, let's just blah, kind of vomit out all of our creative ideas. Take one, put them inside of a rectangle and just see what happens to them once they go on stage. And it's amazing what your brain starts firing and doing to your little character that just came out of nowhere. So that would be, the next step. And there's a million more steps you could take after that. But that's all I want to grace you with today on our mindful doodle. The point of this was to relax you and hopefully open up your creativity. Happy to hang around and answer questions or share things. I hit you with a lot of thoughts and ideas. So, or if you just want to say goodbye, that is fine too. Scott, was there anything that you wanted to add to the conclusion?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that this feels like a great exercise just to get unblocked too. If you feel like you're not able to create something, this is really freeing for the mind, because I saw like patterns emerging where it's like, well, I've got a hat with eyes on a head with eyes. And so it seemed to be like a little motif, right? A little pyramid where there's eyes on one side staring at eyes on the other side. It just seemed, and it was a great way just to kind of let go, kind of bypass that internal editor that so many of us have and just get stuff out. Because as you said, you can then look at that and say, well, I like that one. I could refine that later. But the idea right now is just to generate stuff and not think about it.
Yes. Yep. Yeah, because the getting relaxed and getting to it is kind of it's hard to fight around that block. And I know when I was a teacher and I would have the summers off, I'd be like, finally, summer's off. And I would try to draw and I just couldn't because I was so like still in my stress mode. And it takes a long time to kind of relax and get to that childlike, playful place where the good stuff is.
Janie said, thank you. This was relaxing.
Oh, good. Hey, Janie.
And Dina said, thank you, Cara. This was so fun. Loved watching them unfold.
Oh, good. Good. Well, it's my pleasure. Thanks so much for having me. And yeah, I hope it keeps the doodling going on in all of myself included, our lives.
Cara, thank you so much. This was such a fun session. I haven't picked up the pen and drawn in a while. I am one of those, kind of idle doodlers if I'm taking notes on something. So it was nice to just kind of sit around and make shapes and not think about it. It was really a lot of fun. Thank you for doing this. Thanks for joining us for the Co-Creative Sessions, funded in part by the Acushnet, Dartmouth, and New Bedford local cultural councils, local agencies which are supported by the Mass Cultural Council, a state agency, and funded in part by 2 programs administered by the New Bedford Economic Development Council, Federal Award Number SLFRP 1067, awarded to the City of New Bedford by the U.S. Department of the Treasury, and by the U.S. Small Business Administration, SBA, via the Community Navigator Program to support COVID-19 small business recovery. Stay tuned for upcoming sessions and view previous sessions in the series by visiting the Co-Creative Center's events page at cocreativenb.org. We look forward to seeing you at the next Co-Creative Session.